David Goss, Tom Bogert here at Soccerwise, Minnesota United time in our 2025 season previews. We've been doing them with local podcast hosts around the Major League Soccer sphere. We love the ability, the opportunity to connect with people who love the same thing we do, who are passionate about what they do, and bring what we believe is vital coverage to this sport and to this league. This one's a little bit different. Maybe not as much a newsy podcast host, but has the credentials anyway. Zarek Valetin, recently retired, very recently retired, Minnesota United player, now doing the official podcast for Minnesota United, as well as working a little bit with the coaching staff. He has been around the league for a while. Montreal, Impact at the time, MLS Cups with the Portland Timbers, Houston Dynamo, and then finishing in Minnesota. He is a true MLS lifer, Tom, and I think it's just fun to see him stay in the league and be connected to things.
I couldn't agree more. Zarek Valetin is an absolute legend. Love that dude. He's one of those guys that, like, you see him, you just get happy. Like it's a visceral reaction. There's so much joy that he exudes. He's a fun dude. He's a laughs, all that stuff. It's funny to see him as a coach, right? Like he told us a story where he was joking around, but like, hey, come on, boys, like you can't. It's almost like you can't see him as a super serious guy, but like you can because he's a serious professional athlete and had a wonderful career and is very serious about coaching. But he's just one of those dudes that you see him and you smile and you laugh and you want to be around him. So I think that's one of the highest compliments I can give.
I was lucky enough to basically work with him at MLS Cup. I believe it was 2021 when the Timbers hosted. And he was obviously playing. They were knocked out, and he wanted to try his hand a little bit at broadcasting. To walk around Providence Park in Portland with Zarek Valetin is to feel like a celebrity. Like, it was absolutely insane. It's just every person had a nice thing to say, wanted to talk to him, had a connection too. It wasn't like, oh, like, I'm such a big fan. It was like he remembered everyone. He remembered meeting them in the past. It is what you hope for, and these are the people you want to stay around the league. Like, he is someone who should be, and he talks about it in the show. He speaks Spanish fluently. He knows a little French from his time in Montreal. So he's working as a translator for players, many of who are coming to this league for the first time. That's the type of ambassador you want in a situation like that, to be like, if you are committed to this, this is what it could be for you.
Exactly. And again, he spoke about it a little bit too, where he understands the opportunity and the respect that he's getting from Eric Ramsey, that it's not typical for a player to go immediately to the coaching staff. It happens. It's not unprecedented, but more often than not, they go to the academy staff or they go maybe to the front office at some sort of lower level role rather than first team coaching staff. That is a big responsibility, one he doesn't take lightly, but from the outside, it just shows you all of the nice things we're saying about Zarek Valetin. I'm sure that's nice for him to hear. What matters more is a guy like Eric Ramsey is, no, I want you on my staff, where he has the respect of his peers. So I think that again, you don't need to say any words. You just look at those actions. You look at, the people who gravitate towards this guy, and that's what it is.
He was also one of the players who wore one of the T-shirts when the Timbers fans were protesting over the use of the Iron Front flag. And, like, there are just very few players who are that aware of what's going on around them off the field. And, when I talked to him about it, covering it, he was like very good about, I care about this. I want to promote this, but also, like, I understand that I'm not stepping in front of the fans. I'm trying to be an ally to them. And so I think he's been a really special part of this league. I love Minnesota. I spent a lot of time there a few years back when they hosted an Open Cup semifinal. They hosted the All-Star game. I got to go out there a couple different times. I always have some great meals. I always get to hang out with some great people. We get to go to Blackheart, which we love to do. Yeah. And shout out to Wes, who is in the Discord all the time, making my life more difficult and making fun of me. And now I'm a part-time Minnesota Aurora. Part-time, I guess, part owner.
Oh, you're an owner. You're an owner. Sick, dude.
Not a part-time, because I'm full-time part owner. So I got to get out to Minnesota once again this year, but it's always one of the best. And Tom, they've punched, maybe you could say, above their weight in Major League Soccer, but from the start where they were being sort of a cheaper team that struggled and all of that, they've reestablished themselves, and they're consistently a team that has made the efforts to contend towards the top of MLS. And I think this is a group that can be really good in the Western Conference. So let's go to our interview now, or our conversation now, with Zarek Valetin. We continue on with our season previews here at Soccerwise, hitting all 30 teams as we get ready for the 2025 MLS season. David Goss and Tommy Scoops with you as usual. And this time we're going north. We are talking Loons, and we've got a special person with us for this. You are probably the most athletic podcast host that we have talked to so far. That is a compliment, I swear. Zarek Valetin of Sounds of the Loon podcast.
There you go. Brought to you by Line of Health. Shout out Line of Health. Yeah, it's a really low bar for someone who just got surgery. I'll tell you that much.
Does a Line of Health promise all of us medical massages after this?
Listen, I'll put in the new contract.
Okay. That's all I want to hear. It is a big one for you, Zarek. You just retired and you are entering now into a transitional part of your life. Is a term that we're going to choose to use, the next phase of your career. And you're all over the map now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, first off, a blessing for myself and my family. We've been so happy in Minnesota from the second we got there. And, working with Coach Ramsey and Khalid and Sherry here, they were able to kind of figure out, carve my own path to allow me to experience a lot of different things, starting with some of the assistant coaching with the first team. I got some initials right here, which is pretty cool. Hosting the podcast that we have. I've had a few guests. I'd love to have you guys on our podcast.
See there?
Just a little bit of everything. So it's been a lot of fun these first few weeks into preseason, getting to see things from behind the curtain now as opposed to being a player.
You're just working on training sessions, being like, I actually think there needs to be more running in that session.
Well, the funny thing was, I actually I did a passing drill the other day, and Coach Ramsey gave me enough leeway to design the passing drill. I set it up. Got the boys out there, and I brought them in, and I didn't think he'd hear this, but he called me out afterwards. I brought them in. I said, hey, guys, this is my first piece of responsibility. Let's not F this up. But obviously I said the real word. I said, so we're going to do 2 bouts of this with rondos in between. Let's make this look all right, because if not, I might not get much responsibility after this.
You're just pulling on the heartstrings. But, Zarek, that's going to wear out. You got to earn respect. You have to own that.
Oh, yeah, trust me. I've been getting there. Like I said, I think, at the end of last year, I picked up an injury during international break. So I had about 3 months, literally from September, October, November throughout playoffs, where I was actually kind of doing this already, but I didn't have an official black top. So I was helping out doing some of the translation stuff. And now I actually have weight, right? And then luckily Coach Ramsey will give me some assignments to where it has weights, and kudos to the guys. There's been no pushback. Obviously there's a little good banter and stuff like that, but it's been really great to just, step in and, look at things and try to be a resource to some of the younger players and, be a confidant, right? I really value the relationship I have with the players, and obviously want to always just put them and just help them succeed in any way possible. And now I have a little bit of, firsthand, conversation with Coach Ramsey and some of the other assistant coaches, so I can bring stuff up and, players are really comfortable. So it's been a really fun transition. I'm just excited to, keep going and obviously, get back into the season where the games really matter.
It is it's that time of year where we're pretending players aren't on the field and players aren't at practice and all these other things. Now you get to see it from our point of view. I'm sure it's frustrating from the player side, but it is maybe even more frustrating from the outside. But we did get some transfer news in for Minnesota United. So we're going to run through that. We're going to hit our Doyleisms as we always do. We sit at the foot of the master, our sage, Matthew Doyle, and then we'll bounce off that. And we've got our over-under line from our bookie in New Jersey, Andrew Wiebe, who sets it for us.
I don't bet. Let's put it out there.
100%. I 100% understand that. But you could understand how someone from New Jersey would have really good ideas about something like that, Hypothetically. And maybe eventually one day he'll go play running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then go Birds. We can go from there. Had to get that one in before we got too far. For anyone not watching on video, we post all of these on YouTube. Zarek holding up his Birds hat there. Go Birds.
Yeah. You want to give me the floor for the Eagles?
I thought I was going to get the automatic Go Birds back. I thought if someone said Go Birds, everyone just said Go Birds back.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a high around Philadelphia these days. No, it's been Super Bowl. I cried multiple times. For me, it's weird because I get so detached from MLS fans because this is our job, right? You've been in and around it, but now I see it from the other way because my Birds just won, and feeling the emotion, and it gives you a different level of respect for the fans. And I've been so fortunate enough to have some incredible fan bases that I played from, and now being in Minnesota, it's just really cool to kind of see it all come to fruition and hopefully be on the other end to help deliver a championship.
Were you in Coachella trying to climb light poles and do whatever else that the Eagles fans were doing back in Philly?
I also value my new job for the time being. So, as much as my inclination is to go out and just cause havoc. I value a paycheck a little bit more than I do sliding down some poles like I'm a fireman.
Zarek's
You
just
gotta
in
think
his
about
room, just knocks over one piece of plastic and is like, I did it. Go Birds.
I did it. It's causing some chaos.
We've got some big transfer stories around this Minnesota team. For a lot of it, Tom, it's the going outs. A lot of the work for them coming in was done early last year, and so we saw those players on the field. Some huge names leaving the team, Zarek Valetin being the biggest one.
Obviously, it's going to be a big defense.
There was for this, they brought in a lot of players in the summer. They are continuing to remake this team under Khalid Al-Ahmad and head coach Eric Ramsey. So it was more about moving players out as the contracts were going on. So they had a lot of departures, chief among them, as you said, Zarek. But Timu Pukki, Ethan Bristow, those were some of the names that departed. Franco Fragapani, who had been here for a little while. In came Nicholas Romero, Hoyan Zhang, and Owen Jean as kind of the three key additions to this team. But Goss, as you kind of teased last year, the summer window was the big window for this team in bringing in Kelvin Yeboah and several other key players.
Yeah, and it's something that I've sort of pushed on this show. We've talked about it already in the first few weeks this year. Excuse me. And Zarek, we talked about it last
talking
year.
about an Eagles Super Bowl.
Yeah, go Birds. We talked about it at the end last year. The work done early. Like Major League Soccer, one of the issues is the windows being in different spots, summers and winters. And for a lot of teams, they'll use the summer window to tool up for the next year. And it feels like that's what Minnesota has done in this offseason, has been a lot about stability. Talk to us a little bit about Eric Ramsey, because you, in theory, played for him for a little bit.
Theory.
Well,
That was disrespectful. Zarek, if you walk off, I don't blame you.
Oh man!
I'll walk off with you.
I'm just saying, you mentioned you were already coaching at the end of last year before the season was over.
Pretty much. I think I might have played a collective 7 minutes under Coach Ramsey in like 2 games. Just call in the closer, get the vet out there, KG step in, get an injury, get organized set pieces. Coach Ramsey's been great. He's been an incredible addition. You could see his knowledge from the get-go. He processes information great. He delivers a very clear idea. And also something I'm learning from my end is he delegates a lot of tasks really well within Dennis Lawrence and Cameron Knowles. And obviously Cameron really got the club off to a good start last season, kind of establishing a good foundation, and Coach Ramsey building upon that. But again, I'd say the biggest thing is really getting everyone to buy into the system in which we play. That is, obviously a tight, compact system, really tough to break down. And that's not always the easiest to sell to players. But what is easy to sell is winning. So that was a big thing for us. And again, we're excited about some of the new guys coming in. They've already, touched ground here in Palm Springs, and it's just a matter of trying to get them to acclimate as quickly as possible. And being someone who is multilingual, I've already had conversations with Romero. I'm going to sit down with him. I've sat down with Ho Young and his agent through a translator to try to get some of these concepts passed over as quickly as possible. But yeah, Coach Ramsey's done a great job at least of getting everyone to buy into who we are, and then go out there and execute it as best as possible.
You've been around this league for a while. You've seen a lot of different styles, both on the field as well as man management and all that types of stuff, all those types of things. How do you think this team sort of settles into its place in the hierarchy of MLS and where it all stands in 2025?
It's tough to say. I think the thing that comes with success is expectations, right? So now as a fan, you watch it and you go, okay, well, this is the level that we have. Let's try to sustain this as much as possible. And I would say first and foremost, defense wins championships. I was fortunate enough to go to an MLS Cup in 2018 with the Timbers, and we prided ourselves on our mid block and being able to defend for periods of time. And I think for me, that's the foundation to a really good, successful team. If you can't defend well in a mid-block, and I've been on teams that can do it well, and I've been on teams that can't do it well, if you can't do it well, you're going to basically get exposed. So I think trying to get those moments right and really having that strong foundation and kind of that go-to, right? This is the norm. This is the retraction for us. And then going out and then sprinkling in some special players up top that can create moments and pull rabbits out of hats is the cherry on top of that. Now it's just, again, Now it's not a surprise. We can't catch teams by surprise with the way we're going to play. So it's a matter of, again, understanding that people are going to have, maybe a target out for us a little bit more than they did last year, and then trying to live up to those expectations we created for ourselves.
Tom, before we get into our Doyleism, what do you make of the window so far and just the build of this Minnesota roster?
I really, really like it. So this team, it has a really strong collective. They are deep at a lot of places, and just as windows have gone by since Khalid El Ahmad took over as sporting director, this is absolutely his team, his staff's team, the coaching staff, all of this. There aren't a lot of players that are left over that they didn't purposefully keep or extend or continue to put within this group. So with like Zarek was saying, the compactness and how they're defending, they need a special type of person for that. There are no passengers in this group. There are a lot of piano carriers. There are plenty of piano players in this team, but everybody to a man is going to do the work. And that was, again, something that Khalid Almada said. That's something Eric Ramsey has told me as well. And I think that not only do they have that structure, that foundation, they have the depth to tweak things around. We talked about it on a recent episode of Soccerwise that they played with 2 center forwards in their preseason game, and that's going to be a look that they could go. Robin Lod can play as a 10, he can play as an 8. Joaquin Pereira, I think we're going to see a lot more from him this year. It's almost like it was Kelvin Yeboah's success was a little bit unfair to Joaquin Pereira because it was Yeboah was unbelievably good so quickly, and then it was like, oh, why isn't Pereira? And then in meanwhile, everybody takes most players take some time to adapt to this league, to adapt to the game. We always give them some leeway, but when Pereira and Yeboah came in at the same time, it's like, well, one of them is an absolute star already. What about Pereira? I think we're going to see a lot more from Pereira this year. So they didn't need to do much. They added a couple pieces. Central defense, I think, was their biggest need. We'll see what happens with Hassani Dotson. He requested a trade. I love him in this team. It's unfortunate that they couldn't come to terms, both sides. We'll see what happens there, but at least Owen Jean and Ho Young Jung come in to add to that central midfield group.
Yeah, there's a lot of members of this team we're really excited to watch that, Zarek, I'm going to ask you about. But for now, I'm going to pretend I don't see you and ask Tom, did you see Hassani Dotson at preseason, and where do you expect, or what do you expect happens here? And we were recording this on February 11th, so maybe it has already happened.
I don't know. So, yes, he was there. And again, you can put earphones on, Zarek. I don't want to put you in a bad spot if you haven't listened to it. But my understanding is that when he's with the group, they still love him. Like this was a thing between his camp, and it was a new contract thing. Like that's where it all started.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as he's here, it seems to me that he's going to play. But there are several teams calling. There are several teams that want him. They have not agreed to terms with anybody yet. There are teams pushing. So maybe this resolves itself, and he's no longer part of the team. But I think if he's here, he's going to be selected.
Let's go into our Doyleism, and then we can bounce off the back of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on the Loons, I think, based upon what we saw the second half of last season. Really after the transfer window in the summer. They were just a different team. And the high-end talent they had between Kelvin Yeboah and Robin Lod, and then the super underrated Joseph Rosales at left wing back. And of course, balanced by Boggy Longwani on the right wing, is playing sort of like a half wing back, half a winger. It was awesome. It worked. It was a lot of fun. They were crushing teams, and they looked great in the playoffs too, right up until they ran up against that buzzsaw in the Galaxy attack. And that kind of exposed the big weakness in this side, which is central midfield. Like, they have some functional players there, but they didn't have the high-end talent to match the best teams in the league. And so they've tried to, I guess, address that this winter by going out and getting Owen Janae and then Jung Ho Yeon. And I can't claim to know anything about these players other than their highlight reels and their transfer market page. They might be great. If they're great, if they are legit, then this is a team that's like a fun dark horse candidate. But if they're just guys, which they're just like, exactly what they had last year, except with different names, then I think last year, the second half of last season, is the ceiling for this team. It doesn't mean it can't be fun. They could do some things playing out of the back too, but they have to have gotten those two signings right if they're going to be a contender of any sort.
Guys who do a similar job with a different name is what people say when they sign me up and they think I'm Doyle. And then I show up to do a preview, and they're trying to talk to me about stuff that Matt Doyle would know. Let's start with the high-end talents, Eric, that he talked about. Let's start with our favorite here at Soccerwise, Joseph Rosales. He was our underrated best 11 must. You've played the position yourself. What do you see from him? What is he like to watch?
Joe's awesome. Joe's been my guy here, and it's been really fun to see his transformation. And I think part of that's confidence. I think part of it's the system. It's a little bit of everything. But first and foremost, Joe's ceiling is crazy high in terms of the amount of work rate he has, in terms of his delivery, his service, making decisions. It's just the biggest thing for me now, and the challenge that we're with him in now is, hey, Joe, we got to do it again. It's all great and fine and dandy to have one great season. We went out there, had a lot of assists. He's with his national team, starting game in, game out. But let's continue to push that bar. Let's push ourselves as much as we can and try to get that much better. Because if we want to get a new contract, boom, we got a new deal. We succeeded in that sense. If we want to potentially go and take steps further in our career, whether that's home or abroad, we have to continue to push and get better. So I'm excited to see him progress. He's challenging himself internally. And again, for me, the sky's the limit for Joe in terms of what he wants to accomplish. And hopefully I can help him whatever way that is.
We are in danger of losing him on the underrated best 11 because he's going to get rated and he deserves it. And it's going to be a really fun year to watch him put in service for these attackers. Now let's talk about Kelvin Yeboah. He came into the league last year and a couple PKs early and sort of flashes in the pan. And then all of a sudden it clicked and we had started this show. And I'm saying, I think this guy, we're talking about a future MVP candidate. And we saw it in the postseason as well. A young player coming into this league. You've been around some of the best. What have you seen from how he's settled and what he can be?
First and foremost, I think like Tom was saying, we had a different look. Maybe we pair him with Tanny. We've seen that a little bit, maybe Sung Bin. But I think in general, first and foremost, I think that strikes me about Kelvin is just his work rate. The guy's a nerd. He's a junkie in terms of just football in the best way possible. Watching clips, challenging me. He's come in and pushed the standard from day one, which has been great, right? To have someone come in that basically says, hey, let's get it going. And you're either with me or I'm going to drag you with me at times. So it's been great to see that day in and day out at training. And then you obviously see some of the more polished versions in games. So again, for Kelvin, it's a matter of, again, just not having that be a little blip in time, right? Seeing how much you can do it again now that people might say, hey, we got to look out for this guy, right? Now, when you look at the scouting report, his name might be on the top of that list. So how can you function there? How can you create that little bit of space? How can you find that quality? So again, for Kelvin, he almost has to be pulled back a little bit. We did finishing today. Again, he wanted to stay out there. He would have stayed out there till this meeting had I let him. But again, for him, it's just a continuation of that and basically trying to work with the Rosaleses and say, hey, maybe we can look at this, maybe we can do it that. So I'm super excited for Kelvin and Joe this year, amongst other things. I'm excited about our whole team. But again, with those guys, the sky's the limit. It's just a matter of, again, now doing it when all the eyes are on you, now doing it and showing up when it matters most.
Tom, that's what Doyle was sort of saying, right? We like what we saw last year. You lose to the MLS Cup champions on the road after upsetting a team in the first round. Like, that's a good year one. That is what you'd hope for. It's that next step that can be a little bit of a challenge, and it's going to fall on some of these high-end talent players that they've gone out and gotten. Yeboah fits the profile. Some of these other ones have been middle in terms of what you go out and spend at a player at these positions, whether it's DP or high-level TAM, and that's the question mark, I think, it feels like, of what's going to hit for this Minnesota squad.
Yeah, the way that this team raises its ceiling is more about the collective. Like, of course, I do think that they have a couple really, really top-end players. Yeboah, Lud, what I'm expecting from Joaquin Pereira, again, the wingbacks, all of this. So this team is always going to be based off the collective, and they're going to beat you by Hatton. Like, maybe they won't have the best three players on the field, but they certainly won't have the three worst. Like, it is going to be a full team effort. I don't think that the ceiling is, like, lowered if Joaquin Pereira isn't a great player, like you were saying, guys. Like, for me, we've seen this type of team kind of succeed, particularly in the regular season MLS, and I'm not ruling out the playoffs, but this is a team that is built to be really difficult to beat and is going to pick up a lot of points and be really, really consistent. And then when you get to those knockout round type games, whether that's the playoffs or whether that's cup competitions, Kelvin Yeboah, I think on his day, has a chance to rival, right? Last year is too soon. I don't put any stock in that playoff loss because them making the playoffs at all, like, was an incredible feat for a team that started the season with a second interim coach and a sporting director who came in, like,
the interim.
and a sporting director that started in January, I think, or like mid-January, right? Like, everything that they had done was set up for this team is going to take some lumps this year, but it's going to be worth it in the long term because we think we got the right people, and if we have to wait, so be it. Well, they jump-started it by how quickly they did last year. They're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. But I just think that the foundation is so solid. The floor is so high. Whether, like, I wouldn't call them, Supporter Shield favorites or MLS Cup favorites or anything like that. But I think this is a seriously very good team and one that has a really high floor.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier a few weeks ago. You were sort of saying, like, it's that time of year where you think everyone's going to be in the playoffs, and we started debating teams. I think you brought up with the Sounders saying who else will contend at the top of the West. And I brought up Minnesota quickly because I think it's a high floor. I think there's a lot of continuity and there should be a lot of excitement. We're going to talk about the attack, and I think a large reason for that in a moment. But first, I want to ask you, Zarek, about Jefferson Diaz, the last one, who came in kind of under the radar last year at a position that Minnesota has tried to fill over the last few years. If you haven't read it, go to Backheel. Joe Larry did a really cool piece breaking down Jefferson Diaz's game and kind of focusing on him. And his background as a center forward, now playing center back, was something that he keyed on. And I think we saw of him a pure natural soccer player at that center back position.
Yeah, definitely. I credit to the staff and everyone bringing players in. I've worked really closely with Joaquin and Jeff and Joe because they don't speak any English. So I have to go in and I'm literally back there like a goalkeeper translating all the meetings to make sure that they can get all the stuff cognitively. And then on the pitch, again, Coach Ramsey is talking to the collective group and I'm sitting there, really forwarding some of the messages. So credit to those guys for getting the information, processing it, and then going out and executing. But Jeff is someone who is an incredible detailed person in terms of wanting to learn, wanting to get better, so humble, super, I would say just hungry to go out there and perform and do well. And it's been great to kind of see him adapt because MLS is weird, man.
Yeah.
As MLS is a league where you could see guys come in and for 6 months they might not adapt and do really well. The next thing you know, next year, okay, cool. They kind of they have these moments where they have these aha, where it's like, I know what I'm doing now. So it takes time. And I think Jeff settled in great. I think Kelvin settled in great. I'm excited to see Joaquin continue to settle in. It'll be interesting to see, with Romero here, a lot of bringing in some of these players now that add competition, which is extremely exciting. But as I said, it's not always fun to say as a player, but as a coach, I love saying it. But competition breeds the best out of bringing out players. Which is great. I didn't like competition as a player because eventually, it meant I had less of a time potentially playing. But, I'm extremely excited to see Jeff continue to take steps forward and just continue to refine and polish his game. I think he has another high ceiling. It's just a matter of, again, reaching those consistency levels in terms of, being on the ball, getting in his defensive shape. Also, again, with these guys, I'm challenging them to learn English. You got to learn up, step, right, left, drop. These are things in which that's how he can take his game to the next level, right? He's looking at Michael Boxall, hey, man on, left, right, step, cover. Those types of things are the way he can go from having a good season to a really good season. And it's just some small details that we have to continue to get right.
You should use the term for that aha moment. We call it the Goss theorem. It takes a little while. You should tell every coach that so that then coaches are saying that. I'm working on a little bit of vocabulary that I'm trying to grow in Major League Soccer. The other one is cash for arcades. We'll talk about that after we get done with this. Don't worry about it. Let me finish here with our line. Nothing on the line here in reality. So it is not nothing wrong. It's just for fun. I'm just throwing that out there as a disclaimer before we get there. Andrew,
you're making it more suspect the more that you lay it out.
I'm just saying. Andrew Weeby set the line, and this time it was for 5 different 5+ goal scorers. So 5.5. 5+ goal scorers on the roster. Last year there was 6. I think it goes to last year. It really was by committee until the end of the year when Yeboah took over. And a lot of the returning pieces that scored 5+ goals are in this team once again. So you have a ton of options. Bongi, Tanny, for currently Asani Dotson, Sangbin as well, Ludd, Kelvin Yeboah, and now you bring Pereira into this for a full season as well, Tom. So 5.5 players on this roster scoring 5+ goals. Where do you fall over under?
And hold on, the fact that they had 6 last year and one of them wasn't Timu Puki is just crazy. In hindsight.
Yeah.
So
You had 5 or 4.
Well, I'm just going from MLS. So he had 4 in MLS play. Maybe he had some in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, and this, by the way, is for only MLS competition.
So for me, I'm going to lean under just because I think Kelvin Yeboah is going to be the guy. And I think it was more by committee, particularly at the beginning of the season, that it wasn't just that there was a lot of really good players around these attackers, because I think that there are. I just think that Kelvin Yeboah, he's going to get all the penalties. He's going to get a lot of the touches in the box. That having 6 players score 5 or more goals is pretty difficult. And I think this year it's going to be revolving more around Yeboah, so that even, say, the attacking midfielders, they're going to get more assists than goals.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going under on the 5.5 players. Zarek, do you want to get involved?
I'm going over.
Okay.
I think our strength is in the collective, right? I think if you look around successful teams in this league, there's a little bit of a formula in terms of what that is, but the group is stronger than certain individuals. We've seen some really, really, really special players. I've played against them. I've had good days and bad days against them, but for our group, I would say the collective is stronger than an individual, and I believe we can go out there and have a lot of guys contribute this year. I'm not going to say who my over would be, but again, I know that one thing is success is contagious and it makes you want it even more, right? And you get so close and you love it. And we had a bitter end of the season last year, so I think that we're going to hopefully go out there and I believe in my guys, and I'm always going to back my guys.
Attaboy.
Any coach would, but as someone who's been in the locker room and been in the trenches with them through good and bad moments, I'll take the over.
I'm going to follow Zarek mainly because it feels like a safe thing to do, considering he played with the team and is now coaching the team. But I will say this, Tom, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I have harped on since watching Kelvin Yeboah fit in that I think he will be an elite chance creator as well when he drops in. And so the goals that Bongi scored last year, I think a lot of those will still be there. Sang Bin will take some of those as well. And then you have the ability now to start two forwards up top. So I look at this group from last year, and I think all of them are going to score 5+ goals that did. And the question is, can you replace one of them if you have to, if Hassani Dotson moves on? And I think some of the adds you've made to this team or Pereira playing a full year, it'll be there. I think it's a good line, though, from Weeby, and it is
excellent.
It is a tough line. He has done a really good job in this offseason. Now, it's an interesting line because normally he picks X star player, right? Normally it's, will Benteke score 24.5 or more or less? That wasn't the story last year for Minnesota, and yet they still finished so high because of that collective that you talked about, Zarek. And I think we're excited to see that in year two, and we're excited to see year two for Eric Ramsey and every other piece in here. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us. You can go back out and make people run around for a little bit more under the sun. Go Birds, and we'll see you next time on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, so much for having me. I appreciate it. Tom, it was great seeing you out here for a little bit. Again, I look forward to having you guys on the Sound of the Loons podcast, brought to you by Line Health. Got to get that in there. But yeah, so thanks a lot for having me, guys, and I'm looking forward to chatting soon.
All right, we'll talk soon.